Parks with dark secrets, what the signs don't say. You see the sign for the trail, but not for the dark history hidden in the trees. You see the promise of beauty, but not the secrets buried beneath the forest floor. These sprawling landscapes have been the backdrop for some of the most disturbing crimes and baffling disappearances imaginable. The same trails that lead to stunning vistas have also led people to their doom. The silence of the woods has swallowed screams that no one ever heard. For years, guidebooks and park signs have often left out these darker chapters. But as of 2025, that omission is becoming official policy. A new federal directive has ordered parks to remove or avoid content that could be seen as negative toward U.S. history, essentially mandating that the full, often disturbing, truth be scrubbed from the record. So now, more than ever, we're going to expose the shocking cases and deadly risks that prove these parks are as dangerous as they are beautiful. These are the warnings the signs literally aren't allowed to say. Vast, majestic, and wild. Our national parks are sanctuaries. They're places of breathtaking beauty where we go to escape, to reconnect with nature, and to find a little peace. Millions of acres of wilderness, preserved for us to explore. The signs point us towards scenic overlooks and tranquil forest trails. They promise adventure and a return to the wild heart of the world. But what about the stories the signs don't tell you? Section 1. The Yosemite Killer, a handyman's hidden rage. Our first story takes us to a crown jewel of the national park system, Yosemite. A place of granite titans like El Capitan, ancient sequoia groves, and thundering waterfalls. Each year, millions of visitors feel safe within its protected boundaries. But in 1999, that sense of security was shattered when the postcard-perfect landscape became a hunting ground. It started in February of that year. Carol Sund, her 15-year-old daughter Julie, and their 16-year-old family friend, Silvina Palazzo, were on a sightseeing trip. They checked into the Cedar Lodge, a rustic motel just outside the park's gates. It was supposed to be a cozy home base for their adventure. They would never check out. When the three failed to make contact for several days, their family grew frantic and a massive search was launched. It was as if the trio had vanished into thin air. A month later, their rental car was found miles from the park, down a remote embankment. It had been torched. Inside the trunk were the charred remains of Carol Sund and Silvina Palazzo. But one terrifying question hung in the air. Where was Julie? The desperate search for Julie Sund intensified, with the FBI now leading the case. The break came from the killer himself. A chilling hand-drawn map was mailed to the police with a taunting message. "We had fun with this one." The map led investigators to Don Pedro Reservoir, where they found Julie's body. Her throat had been cut. Fear gripped the community. A predator was on the loose, one who knew the area and was brazen enough to taunt the FBI. As investigators worked tirelessly, a quiet, unassuming figure moved among them, completely unnoticed. His name was Cary Stayner, a 37-year-old handyman who worked at the Cedar Lodge, the very place the victims had stayed. He'd even been interviewed as a helpful witness. Cary Stayner had a dark past. He was the older brother of Stephen Stayner, a famous kidnapping victim who had escaped after 7 years in captivity. While his brother was hailed as a hero, Cary felt ignored and neglected, and he harbored violent fantasies about women for decades. On the outside, he was just the friendly local guy. Underneath, a monster was waiting. For months later, with the community still on edge, the killer struck again, this time inside Yosemite. Joie Armstrong, a 26-year-old park naturalist, was found murdered near her remote cabin. She had been decapitated. This time, the killer made a mistake. A witness reported seeing a vehicle matching Stayner's near the crime scene. The FBI brought him in for another round of questioning. Over the course of a long car ride, a strange rapport was built, and what followed was a confession that stunned the nation. Cary Stayner calmly detailed how he had stalked and murdered all 4 women. He admitted to using his job as a handyman to fake a water leak and get inside the son's motel room. Once inside, he pulled a gun. He strangled Carol and Sylvina in the room, then took Julie to the reservoir and killed her. The murders weren't random. They were the culmination of a lifetime of horrific fantasy. The man who had blended into the background was the Yosemite serial killer. Cary Stayner was convicted of 4 counts of murder and sentenced to death. His crimes left an indelible scar on Yosemite, a horrifying reminder that even in places of profound light, the darkest parts of the human heart can find a place to hide. Section 2, Shenandoah's Silence, a 28-year cold case. Our next story takes us to the rolling hills and misty hollows of Shenandoah National Park in Virginia, famous for the spectacular Skyline Drive. It's a place for quiet reflection and peaceful hikes. But in the spring of 1996, this sanctuary became the scene of a brutal crime that remains unsolved to this day. Laura Lawley Winans, 26, and Julianne Julie Williams, 24, were 2 experienced and passionate outdoors women. In May 1996, they hiked with their dog, Taj, to a secluded campsite off the Appalachian Trail. It was a place meant for serenity, a spot to disconnect from the world. When the women failed to return home as planned, their families grew worried and contacted the National Park Service. On June 1, 1996, the search came to a devastating end. In their tent, rangers discovered the bodies of Lawley and Julie. The scene was one of shocking violence. Both women had been bound and gagged, their throats slit. The brutality stood in stark contrast to the tranquil forest setting. The FBI was called in, and a massive investigation began. Since the women were a couple, one immediate theory was that this was a hate crime. However, investigators could never find concrete evidence to support that motive. The investigation spanned years, then decades. The case went cold, but it was never forgotten, becoming a dark legend along the Appalachian Trail. Over the years, several potential suspects were looked at. One man, Daryl David Rice, who had a history of attacking a female cyclist in the park, was even charged with the murders in 2001. But forensic testing, specifically hair found at the scene, eventually ruled him out, and the charges were dropped. The case plunged back into uncertainty. For over 28 years, the silence of Shenandoah has held its secret. Behind the scenes, investigators have continued to work. In 2021, a new FBI team began a methodical review, re-examining evidence with new technology, hoping for a breakthrough. But as of today, there has been no public announcement of a match. The man who committed this monstrous act has never been identified. The motive remains a mystery. For the families of Lawley Winans and Julie Williams, there has been no justice, only decades of unresolved grief. The Shenandoah murders prove that even in the most serene settings, darkness can walk the same trails, and sometimes, the wilderness keeps its secrets forever. Section 3. The Boy on the Mountain, a Secret in the Rockies. Some secrets aren't just kept for decades, but for generations. Our journey now takes us high into the rugged landscape of Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. This is a place of extremes, where serene meadows give way to jagged, unforgiving peaks. It's a park that tests the limits of even the most experienced mountaineers, and it's home to one of the Park Service's oldest and most heartbreaking cold cases. This historical case, one of the oldest on the books for the National Park Service, is a haunting testament to how quickly the wilderness can claim someone. The details have faded with time, becoming a piece of park folklore, a ghost story told to illustrate the very real dangers of the mountains. The story goes that over 65 years ago, a 10-year-old boy was with his family on a summer outing. At some point during the day, he wandered off, a scenario that plays out in parks every day. A child, chasing a butterfly or exploring just around the next bend, momentarily out of sight. But this time, he didn't come back. Panic set in. The family's calls were swallowed by the immense landscape. Park rangers were alerted, and one of the largest search and rescue operations in the park's history was launched. Hundreds of volunteers and seasoned mountaineers combed the rugged terrain for weeks. But they found nothing. No clothing, no footprints, no sign of what happened. It was as if the mountain had simply opened up and swallowed him whole. The official search was eventually called off, but the mystery endured. The most likely explanation is that he fell victim to the elements. A simple slip and fall, an encounter with wildlife, or succumbing to the rapid and severe weather changes that characterize the Rockies. At that altitude, a sunny afternoon can turn into a life-threatening storm in minutes. An unprepared child would have stood little chance. Yet, the complete absence of any trace has fueled darker speculation. Could he have been abducted? While less likely in such a remote area, it's a possibility that can never be fully discounted. This case underscores a terrifying truth about our national parks. The very things that make them beautiful, their size, their wildness, their raw, untamed nature, are also what make them so effective at keeping secrets. Section 4. Missing 411, the phenomenon of the vanished. The cases we've discussed so far are tragic, but they have explanations, however grim. A serial killer confessed. A boy likely succumbed to the wilderness. But what about the cases that seem to defy all logical explanation? This brings us to a controversial and deeply unsettling topic, the phenomenon known as missing 411. The term was coined by David Paulides, a former cop turned investigator. Paulides claims to have analyzed thousands of cases of people who have vanished in the wild and found a series of disturbing and recurring patterns. These aren't typical cases of hikers getting lost. These disappearances often share a strange set of circumstances. One common point is the weather. In many cases, a person vanishes just as the weather inexplicably turns for the worse. A sudden blizzard or a thick fog rolls in, severely hampering search efforts as if on cue. Another chilling factor involves search dogs. In case after case, highly trained dogs are brought to the point where the person was last seen, only to be unable to pick up a scent. The dogs act confused, as if the trail just ends. If the missing are found, the location is often baffling. Victims are frequently discovered in areas that were already searched multiple times. They're found miles away, across impossible terrain like steep mountains or dense swamps, distances they couldn't have possibly covered. Children are sometimes found at impossibly high elevations. Perhaps strangest of all is that victims are frequently found without their shoes or other clothing, even in freezing conditions. This seems to defy the basic instinct for survival. Consider the classic case of Dennis Martin from 1969. A 6-year-old boy camping with his family in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. He and his brother decided to play a prank and hide to scare their parents. His brother jumped out, but when he turned around, Dennis was gone. He vanished in seconds, in broad daylight. An enormous search followed. A witness reported hearing a sickening scream and seeing a rough-looking man carrying something on his shoulder, but this lead went nowhere. Search dogs lost his scent. Dennis Martin was never, ever found. Not a single trace. Skeptics argue that missing 411 is just a collection of unrelated tragedies, cherry-picked for effect. They say that disorientation from hypothermia, animal scavenging, and the sheer difficulty of searching vast wilderness can explain the unusual circumstances. But for those who have looked deep into these cases, the patterns are too strange to be dismissed as coincidence. Paulides himself doesn't offer a definitive theory. Are these the work of unknown predators? Are there geological phenomena at play we don't understand? Or is it something else entirely? The missing 411 cases leave us with more questions than answers. The ultimate dark secret of our parks. The chilling possibility that sometimes, when people walk into the woods, they don't just get lost. They vanish. Section 5. The dangers you don't see beyond crime. The dark secrets of our parks aren't just about crime or mysterious disappearances. Some of the deadliest risks are hiding in plain sight, born of neglect, poor design, and the simple, unforgiving forces of nature. Think about your local park. It feels like the safest place in the world, but danger can lurk in the very equipment designed for play. Over time, wear and tear can turn a playground into a minefield. Rusty screws, weakened swing chains, and improper ground surfacing can turn a simple fall into a serious injury. Trees are another example. In a tragic 2019 case, a 9-year-old girl was sitting on a park bench in Los Angeles when a massive, heavy branch suddenly snapped and crashed down on top of her, causing devastating injuries. An investigation found the branch had been visibly decaying for over a year, but the city had failed to act. Beyond playgrounds, the trails themselves hold hidden perils. Improperly graded paths, a lack of clear markings, or no warnings about dangerous terrain can lead to slips and falls, which can be life-threatening when help is miles away. Poor security and unlit facilities can also make parks magnets for criminal activity like muggings and assaults. And of course, there's the wildlife. The signs say, "Do not feed the animals," but they often fail to convey the true lethal potential of these creatures. Every year, visitors are gored by bison or mauled by bears, often because they got too close trying to get the perfect photo. These hidden dangers, from falling branches to the raw power of nature, are the unsung risks of our public lands. They don't make for sensational headlines, but they are responsible for countless injuries and deaths. They are the dark secrets born not of malice, but of complacency, and they remind us that the most beautiful places can still be dangerous because of the hazards we fail to see right in front of us. These stories are unsettling, and they're just a fraction of what lies hidden in our most beautiful landscapes. We want to hear from you. Have you ever had an unsettling experience in a national or local park? Do you know of a dark history or hidden danger people should be aware of? Share your stories and thoughts in the comments below. Your experience could be a warning that helps someone else. Let's create a community that looks beyond the signs and shares the secrets they don't tell you. From the calculated evil of a serial killer in Yosemite to the decades-long silence in Shenandoah, it's clear that our parks are not just places of beauty. They are also places of deep mystery, risk, and secrets. They are a reflection of the world itself, a mix of light and shadow, peace and violence, wonder and terror. The signs point to the trail, but they don't tell you about the stories embedded in the soil beneath your feet. They show you the view, but they don't show you the ghosts that may be watching from the trees. So the next time you stand at a trailhead, looking out at the majestic, silent wilderness, take a moment. Appreciate the beauty, but also respect the power this place holds. The power to inspire, the power to heal, and the power to keep secrets forever. Remember that some of the most beautiful places hide the darkest secrets. And what the signs don't say is often the most important story of all. Be aware, stay safe, and never forget that you are a guest in a world far older and far wilder than you can ever imagine.